welcome. I'm Kolkata and you're watching the World Report on News 6 World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will visit Berlin on December 15th for talks with European, EU and NATO leaders. US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff is also on his way to Berlin for the talks focused on Ukraine's peace. Ukraine's defense forces struck Russia's oil refinery in Yaroslavl Oblast, one of the country's largest, targeting fuel supplies for Russian troops. Explosions and a large fire were reported with damage assessment ongoing. Russia's missile strikes damaged 3 Turkish-owned vessels in Odessa, prompting Ankara to demand an immediate halt on the same day. Russia has attacked 2 Ukrainian ports, with Ukraine condemning the attacks. US President Donald Trump has announced a Thailand-Cambodia ceasefire after days of deadly border clashes. Hours later, Thai forces reportedly bombed Cambodian territory, casting doubt as both sides trade blame over ceasefire violations claims. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee has released 19 new photos obtained from the estate of the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The images show Epstein with Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, Larry Summers, and Woody Allen, among others. According to Gaza's Civil Defense Agency, Storm Byron has claimed lives of at least 16 people, including 3 children in Gaza-flooded tents and temporary shelters, which worsen conditions for the displaced residents. The United States Central Command will host a conference in Doha on December 16th to plan an international stabilization force for Gaza. Over 25 countries are expected, with sessions focusing on command structure and key operational issues. Latest media reports that United States forces raided a cargo ship traveling from China to Iran last month. According to reports, U.S. military personnel boarded the ship several hundred miles from Sri Lanka, marking another increase in maritime tactics by the U.S. Now we start with U.S. U.S. President Donald Trump has said that U.S. forces will begin carrying out land strikes against drug traffickers. This comes as he described unprecedented success intercepting narcotics shipments by sea. Speaking at the White House during an Oval Office event, Trump has said that the United States is now stopping 96% of drugs coming in by water and will not start targeting those coming in by land. Let's listen in.
Knocking out drugs at levels that nobody's ever seen before. We knocked out 96% of the drugs coming in by water. And nobody can figure out who the 4%. I wouldn't want to be the 4% either, but 96% of the drugs coming in by water. Every one of those boats you see get shot down, you just saved 25,000 American lives. But we knocked out 96% of the drugs coming in by water. And now we're starting by land, and by land is a lot easier. And that's going to start happening. And we're not going to have people destroying our youth, destroying our families. Forget about youth, everybody.
Meanwhile, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has responded to Trump's threat of land strikes on his country. Maduro has stated that Venezuela would not succumb to U.S. pressure. Let's listen in.
Nuestra rebeldía histórica, el mestizaje profundo de esa rebeldía que en el mundo algunos no comprenden todavía porque somos lo que somos y porque su fórmula de mentiras, de presión, de chantaje y de amenaza no funcionan con nosotros. No funcionan ni funcionarán jamás, porque sabemos dónde estamos parados y estamos parados sobre tierra firme y estamos construyendo el modelo de sociedad hermosa que se merece nuestro pueblo. Porque no es un hombre, es un país entero, es una república, es una historia grandiosa. Imbéciles, estúpidos los que creen que es un hombre. No es one man, son millions, the people, the Republican Bolivarian de Venezuela. Respect Respect, stupid. Los estúpidos del norte que se la pasan opinando y escribiendo en los medios estúpidos del norte no pueden entendernos, muchachos. Me perdonan si me exaspero, pero es que cargo una rebeldía y una indignación muy grande todo el día en mi corazón, solo aplacada por el inmenso amor que tengo por Venezuela y por el inmenso logro que estamos obteniendo todos los días.
Meanwhile, according to a document that was unsealed yesterday, the seizure of the Venezuelan oil tanker as last week by the United States was just as a judge-signed warrant was set to expire soon. The warrant was signed by U.S. Magistrate Judge Zia Faruqi on November 26th and gave the Trump administration until December 10th to seize the vessel. The seizure is the first of Venezuelan oil cargo amid U.S. sanctions that have been in force since 2019. Now for this discussion, we welcome Professor Collins Chong-Yu Keith. He's a Foreign Affairs, Security and Strategy Analyst, joins us live from University of Malaya, Kuala Lumpur. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us once again. Good to see you. Thank you. Looking at this, what are the potential diplomatic consequences of this escalating situation between U.S. and Venezuela, and also U.S. conducting land strikes against drug traffickers in Venezuela?
Well, the Maduro's response is, as expected, claiming that Venezuela won't bow to threats. Of course, is to appease domestic demand and domestic political theater. Of course, it's aimed at regime survival. But in terms of military capacity, Venezuela is no match for the U.S. Its armed forces are fragmented, underfunded, politically divided, and of course we've seen how the close geographical posture, where the U.S. military has higher advantage. When such defiance also has been seen now, it's often, it masks this sense of deep vulnerability, it's not a sense of confidence. So we have seen how Trump's posture is, to establish great deterrence, to have this, first line of maximum pressure backed by credible force. So it's also seen as, the warning about potential land strikes is primarily about coercive signaling. It's not an imminent declaration of war. So I don't see any kind of imminent physical declaration of war or physical, land invasion. But the whole objective by Trump is to establish clear deterrence, regime constraint, and it's not an occupation or nation building kind of, maneuver. So we've seen how this is also a continuation of the the credible messaging being sent now by Trump and the Trump administration, that all these efforts being taken now by the Trump administration have been successful, and of course also they are out to deter further actions, and of course to ensure the safety and security of not only of the American people but also of at the wider level the stability and peace of Latin America as a whole.
And how might Venezuela's response to U.S. military actions, how do you think this is going to be affecting regional stability in Latin America?
Well, a full-scale invasion is highly unlikely. So we can see that more plausible, kind of possibilities will include some precision strikes on regime assets and expanded maritime enforcement, and of course also some covert or limited operations targeting these oil, logistics or security elites of the regime. As we all know, Trump prefers short, decisive actions, as can be seen in the this kind of similar action being taken in Iran a couple of months ago. Not prolonged entanglements, definitely not a protracted kind of capacity. And of course also this is also being done to ensure maximum benefits in the shortest possible time frame. And these responses are expected. Also the response by different regional leaders are also expected to ensure that diplomacy still prevails, to ensure that dialogue and restraint are being shown, and that there's this the repercussion, the ripple effects are being managed well, to ensure that the regional stability is still intact, and to provide this kind of buffer capacity. And this is all expected within the norms and the conventional structural norms of international diplomacy. So we have seen how these are the expected responses, but I don't see that to escalate yet in terms of the imminent boots on the ground or imminent land invasion, unless there's a different kind of responses by Maduro. But as of now, it's a clear line of deterrence being set, a show of force, a show of strength and power by Trump and the administration, a powerful message indeed to be sent to Maduro and the administration.
Indeed. Thank you for highlighting that. With that, I would like to thank Professor Collins for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our later discussion as well. Now, moving on, Nobel Peace Prize laureate Maria Corina Machado has warned that the government of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is in its final days. She has also urged more U.S. pressure on Maduro to force him out of the power. Machado was barred from running in the presidential election last year, despite having won the opposition's primary by a landslide. She went into hiding then this year after authorities expanded arrests of opposition figures following the disputed vote. The Electoral Authority and top court has declared Maduro the winner. However, international observers and the opposition say its candidate handily won, and the opposition has published ballot box level tallies as evidence of its victory. Let's in fact listen into what Machado has shared.
Welcome more and more pressure so that Maduro understands that he has to go, that his time is over. And I will insist something that I've said several times before. This is not conventional regime change. This cannot be compared to other cases like countries in the Middle East. We had an election. Regime change was already mandated by over 70% of the population. And what we need is support to enforce that.
Tensions continue to flare between Thailand and Cambodia despite U.S. President Donald Trump announcing a ceasefire. Thai Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul has vowed to continue military operations, insisting his forces would act until threats to Thailand and Thai people were eliminated. Anutin has also claimed a recent landmine blast that killed Thai soldiers was definitely not a roadside accident. Bangkok has confirmed Thai forces had retaliated against Cambodian military targets, raising doubts about the truce brokered by President Trump. Since December 8, both nations have exchanged rockets and artillery along their disputed 817-kilometer border, marking some of the heaviest clashes since the five-day confrontation in July. Trump had previously intervened to extend the truce, arranging troop withdrawals, heavy weapons removal, and the release of 18 Cambodian prisoners of war. However, Thailand suspended the agreement after citing new landmine incidents allegedly planted by Cambodia, a claim that Cambodia denies. The border conflict shows no sign of abating, with both sides continuing to blame each other for renewed violence. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Professor Colin Chong-Yu-Peet. He's a foreign affairs and security as well as strategy analyst, joins us live from Malaya, Kuala Lumpur. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us again. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of these two countries and this particular region where it seems to be triggering these clashes again and again?
So this has been a long-standing conflict, goes back centuries. And over the dispute of the Pravia temple, of course, also is a sensitive, flashpoint for both nations. And now it's fed up again. And of course, we've seen how various tit-for-tat measures have been in place, and both are adamant in not standing down, and both are under huge domestic pressure to project strength, especially along sensitive border areas. But we have seen how this happened despite various efforts, despite regional efforts to prevent escalation, despite efforts by ASEAN, and this is an expected conflict escalation in terms of also seeing how various factors have been in play, including sense of nationalism, and where local commanders are acting independently, and of course also both regimes are out also to protect their own regime survival. So, and of course both nations have been trying their best also to of course, to play their part in not to escalate things, but at the same time, they are also bogged down by this domestic pressure. But this danger lies in miscalculation. It's not about intent. We have seen how this continued military action is meant to reassert sense of control, sense of strength, sense of nationalist pride, and of course, to reassert the capacity of deterrence, and of course, not to escalate the full conflict. And of course, it's a credible test on the role of ASEAN, but increasingly also, it is also a reflection of how Trump can manage this to prevent this from escalating further. And we have seen some positive results. And hopefully, these measures in place, by Malaysia as the ASEAN, as what Malaysia has been doing for the past couple of months now, and of course also the pressure being brought upon by Trump, and hopefully these are not being used as a pretext, as another factor by domestic forces, especially also in Thailand, to project that as part of these, forces, external forces that are out to undermine the sovereignty or interests of Thailand. And of course, also the ultimate way forward now has always been to ensure that, as a mediator, and he has to remain, impartial, and that, the priority now, immediate priority will be to ensure that, civilian lives are protected, and that it will not, escalate into this dangerous escalation risk of, providing this clear, out of control kind of escalation that will also have these, repercussions on neighboring countries and on ASEAN as a whole. But as of now, with Trump's timely intervention of the call being made, we are hopeful that things will at least, stabilize for the next couple of days.
Right. And lastly, Professor, what mechanisms could verify the claims made by Cambodia or Thailand about the violations, and such as landmine incidents that we saw? How do you think they should prevent the collapse of truce this time? As we know, in July it was brokered, and now we are back into, it seems like, square one.
Well, there have been a couple of incidents similar to this, and this is not the first time that incidents like this have threatened to undermine the sanctity of the agreement earlier, and we expect more maybe to come before a prolonged sense of stabilization will endure. And we are also realistic of how things are going on the ground, and that this is not a one-size-fits-all solution. This is a very early preliminary phase of conflict management to ensure that both sides are agreeable to the strong lines of agreement that both sides will play their role to stop any further escalation. And of course, also the mediating team have also been realistic to ensure that while it won't solve the whole claim overnight, it will take a couple of months at least, or years to come. The ultimate focus now at the early phase is to ensure that incidents like this will not recur, and that the lives of the civilians from both sides are protected and prioritized, and that to also build this prolonged regional confidence, stabilization, and to ensure that they are also not being held ransom to other forces domestically from both sides, maybe which will undermine the peace process, and which will also provoke this kind of escalations, because it's hard to tell on each other's claims that the other side started to provoke this kind of escalation, and of course in times of war, truth will be the first casualty, and in times like this, it is again of great importance for both sides to exercise restraint, and for Malaysia and ASEAN President Trump to continue the work of de-escalation, especially also in protecting the lives of the civilians.
With that, I would like to thank Professor Colin Chong-Keith for joining us today from Malaysia and sharing that insight. Thank you. Now we move the focus on to India. Football icon Lionel Messi has touched down in Kolkata, India, to a massive outpouring of fan enthusiasm. Supporters have gathered at the airport and his hotel, waving Argentina flags and wearing Messi jerseys, chanting his name as his convoy exited under tight security. Messi's 3-day tour of India officially began in Kolkata and will also take him to Mumbai and New Delhi, where he is scheduled to meet with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Messi has been joined on this visit by his Inter Miami teammates Luis Suarez and Rodrigo de Paul. The visit has sent football fans into a frenzy as the legendary player connects with the country's growing love for the sport. According to reports from the ground, the attendees of the first event at the Saltlake Stadium in Kolkata have been left disappointed after the event, scheduled for 2 hours, was cut short in just 10 minutes. Fans are blaming the organizers, who reportedly let in hundreds of so-called influential people on the ground and caused the security to cut the event short without any of the promised highlights like free kicks or a penalty shootout. Let's listen into what some of the fans have shared about this.
एकदम घटिया इवेंट 10 मिनट के लिए आया, सारे नेता मंत्री कॉर्पोरेट ऑफिसर सब उनको घेर लिए, कुछ नहीं देख पाए, ना एक किक आउट करवाया ना एक पेनल्टी लिया, कुछ नहीं किया। शाहरुख खान को भी लाना का बोला था, कुछ नहीं लाया, 10 मिनट के लिए आया, चला गया, पूरा फ्रॉड करके चला गया। इतना लोगों का पैसा, इमोशन, टाइम सब बर्बाद, कुछ नहीं देख पाए, कुछ नहीं देख
सपोर्ट ही
पाए।
नहीं किया जा रहा है मेसी को, क्योंकि इतना भीड़ है उसके आसपास में। हम लोग सोचे थे कि एक बार बॉल टच करेगा या फिर कुछ फ्री किक भी होगा या फिर पेनल्टी भी शूट आउट होगा, दोनों तरफ कुछ नहीं, बस आया, देखा और चला गया। हम लोग स्पॉट ही नहीं कर पाए सही से, 10 मिनट भी नहीं था सही से। बाहर सब लोग देख रहे हैं, मतलब हम अंदर से हम लोग कुछ नहीं देख पा रहे। ये एक फ्रॉड के अलावा और कुछ नहीं कह सकते हम लोग।
Around him, and we couldn't even get a glimpse of him for once. It was just those ministers, whoever were there, and he just waved a couple of times and that's it.
Now for this discussion, we are joined by Mr. Shikhar Vijayan. He's a sports journalist, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Mr. Shikhar, for joining us. Welcome to News X World. Now we're seeing these visuals of fans throwing bottles in anger at the stadium after Messi reportedly left an event in just 10 minutes. Your first reaction to this, please?
I think it also explains the fact that the event organizers did not plan this in advance. Knowing how popular Messi is, not just in India but across the world, they should have planned this well in advance, knowing the kind of popularity he has in India and in different parts of the world. And the first stopover for him was Calcutta, which is a football crazy country, football crazy to the point of being hysterical about it. And I was just listening into the fans' reaction to the fact that he just came for a few seconds or a few minutes and left. So it just goes to show that it was not organized well, and I think the organizers are to blame here. When they know that somebody of the stature of Messi is coming on board, they should have a plan in place, a disaster recovery plan in place, a plan in place which accounts for everything which happens at the time when the GOAT comes in, which means ensuring that at the last minute you don't feel the fans high and dry, because the fans make the game. The fans, the thousands of crazy, passionate, hysterical fans are the fans who make football such an interesting game all across the world, and who are so much in love with Messi. But the way this was handled, it is not good. It reflects the high-handedness of the state government. It also reflects the fact that they should have planned these things well in advance. When they knew that Messi was coming in, I'm sure there's a blueprint which would have been shared. I'm sure there would have been a top-level plan which would have been shared. But what after that? What was the plan in terms of how do we make sure that the fans get a real taste of Messi? What the fans were talking about here was his free kicks, getting a glimpse of Messi. They didn't even see Messi properly. So if you're coming into to a GOAT tour, which starts with Calcutta and then moves on to different countries in India, fans don't even get a glimpse of him in a proper manner. They don't even get to see Messi doing his trademark free kicks or penalty shootout or engaging with the fans. Then I don't think the whole idea bears fruit, because ultimately what really matters in such events, in such tours, is the fan connect and how do the fans feel. What we have seen is a very disappointed set of fans, fans who have invested money in this, fans who have who have taken leave from work to come in for this particular show, and they've been left high and dry. They've been left disappointed, which does not augur well for the event organizers. So the event organizers, need to be taken into account. They need to be accountable for this, and need to make sure this kind of disappointment does not happen for other states within India. Because if this happens, and then nowadays in the days of social media, people will get to know the truth very quickly. So it's very important for for the tour which happens in the rest of India, that the event organizers have a plan in place. They have a disaster recovery plan. They also needs to ensure that whichever fan is coming in, he needs to feel happy at the end of the event. And all a fan is looking at is not a meet and greet. It's not that they want to go and shake hands or take a selfie with Messi. They want to have a connect with him in terms of his free kicks, in terms of his talent, in terms of what he's capable of doing on the football field, which means your free kicks, your penalty shootout, and also answering a few questions to the fans. That's all. If the organizers can't even manage this, and this event is known for the shoddy infrastructure, this event is known for the way it is badly managed in terms of more passes being given to bureaucrats or to the government officials, I think the fan has all the reasons for feeling disappointment, which does not augur well for a nation as crazy, as passionate as India.
100%. And now bringing the government into our conversation, how should government leaders, such as we know that President Modi is supposed to be meeting with Messi as well. So should these leaders engage with celebrity athletes for public diplomacy, and what are the potential benefits or risks involved? Should governments take stricter hand in also regulating these events?
So one is with Modi coming in, the Prime Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister of India, he is a custodian for India and he's representing India. And I think it'll be a great. I'm looking forward to the engagement that the Prime Minister has with Messi, where they'll be sharing a few words, which is one. The second thing here is we're talking about the event which started in Calcutta. We're talking about the way the event organizers handled, which was done in a very shoddy manner. I think the action plan really need to have, or the blueprint they really need to have for events of such nature. When you've got such celebrities like Messi coming to India, which India is, such a populous country. India is such a passionate country. India is such a dynamic nation. You need to have a plan in place so that nothing goes wrong. We've always noticed whenever goats like Messi come in, or sporting giants like Messi come in, I think it's very, very important that you have a plan in place. You have to ensure that, and there should be a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, which should happen. You cannot be running around like headless chicken. When somebody like Messi comes in and people really don't know what to do. We really don't know who's accountable, who's responsible for this, who's the point, in, who's the person who's in charge of this, or what's happened. But what's really important is the fans should not be left disappointed. They should not be left high and dry, because tickets are being charged for this. People are paying a lot of money to come in and watch Messi. And if they're investing their money, their time, and their energy, there is no reason why they should not feel happy about it. Because they're getting a once-in-a-lifetime encounter with Messi, who's one of the GOATs of the game, one of the greatest of the games. So I think what's really important is the event organizers need to have a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. And with somebody like a Honorable Prime Minister coming in, I think it augurs well for India if the Prime Minister comes in and has a word with Messi too, because we would love to know what is the kind of interaction they would have, because both are custodians of their respective fields. The Prime Minister is the Prime Minister of the largest democracy in the world, which is India, and Lionel Messi is a magician with the ball, and he represents football. So that would be an interesting encounter. But notwithstanding that, I think we really need to focus on the fans too, and make sure the fans have a lovely time and the fans have a great moment to go back home and talk about. Say that, what, I got a chance to see Messi in action. I got a chance to see Messi, displaying his trademark free kick, or doing a penalty shootout, or speaking to me in Bengali, or speaking to me in Telugu, or just speaking to me in English, or speaking to me in Spanish. The point is, what's the interaction? Here we are talking about, fans being hysterical, fans being disappointed, fans, fans ruining the fact that they invested so much of time and money in doing this, and what they got was nothing else but just a few seconds, and that's really not done.
With that, I would like to thank Mr. Shikhar Vijayan for joining us today in NewsX World and sharing that insight. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we move the focus on to China. China has held a low-key memorial ceremony for the 1937 Nanjing massacre, with the Chinese President Xi Jinping not attending this event, despite a diplomatic crisis between Beijing and Tokyo over Taiwan. China has raged against Japan since the last month, when the Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi has said that a hypothetical Chinese attack on Chinese-claimed Taiwan could trigger a military response from Tokyo. However, China and Japan have long spared over their painful history, as China consistently reminds its people of the 1937 massacre, which it says that Japanese troops had killed 300,000 people in what was then its capital. Now we move the focus on to South China Sea. The Philippine Coast Guard confirms that 3 fishermen were injured after Chinese Coast Guard and maritime vessels used water cannons to carry out aggressive maneuvers near Escoda Shoal in the West Philippine Sea. The Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson said around 20 fishing boats were operating in the area when 2 Chinese Coast Guard vessels and several ships targeted them with high-pressure water cannons, causing bruises and open wounds to 3 fishermen. 2 fishing boats also sustained damage, while small Chinese rigid hull inflatable boats reportedly cut anchor lines, putting the vessels at risk amid strong currents. Despite repeated blocking and close-range maneuvers by Chinese ships, the Philippine Coast Guard successfully reached the victims, providing medical aid, food, fuel, and ice. Philippines has called on China to prioritize civilian safety and adhere to international maritime conduct, noting the attack added to growing tensions in the West Philippine Sea. That's all we have time for. Keep watching News X World for more news updates from around the world.